What is up, everybody? I'm here with Veve's newest recruit. I've got Ryan here. You know him from the drop, but this guy is a big deal in our community, man. And, so happy for him taking on this new role. He's definitely the right person to do it. And we wanted to, talk to everybody today. We wanted to talk about some current things in the community, what people are worried about, what they're concerned about. And we thought we would kind of, lay it out flat. So, what's up, Ryan? How are you, man?
Dude, it's really good to be with you today, brother. I mean, it's been a while since we chatted. Honestly, I consider you like a really good friend in this community just because, one, you encouraged me in this community to be a part of it early on before you even knew who I was, right? Like through your videos. But now, like just getting to know you better and, your passion for what you're doing, both in the community and outside the community, and the way in which you carry yourself day in and day out, week in and week out, so productive, but also challenging and also encouraging. Dude, yeah, you're like one of the coolest people I've met on here, man. So I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Damn, bro, that's so kind of you to say that. Like, and from the get-go, I just knew that you had all that media background, that digital, media experience, and I was like, man, I got to get this guy on because I loved your channel, I love the topics that you guys are bringing up, and it's really cool now that you're kind of a part of the Vivi, and I'm sure there's a lot of secrets you can't tell me, which sucks. But I'm gonna see what I could, slowly unravel here from you today.
Yeah, you can try to uncover it, but yeah, for the most part, my lips are sealed when it comes to the nitty gritty. But yeah, dude, I'm
Yeah,
super excited to talk like high level things and just
yeah.
give perspective. I think at the end of the day, we all have our opinions and perspectives and thoughts, and we all have to make decisions based on that, right? But
Mhm.
there's nothing better than coming to the table and putting those through a filter that allows us to see things more clearly, right? And communication, just organically talking like we are now, there's nothing better. There's no better filter than that to get the purification of information we want. So I'm pretty stoked, man.
I love that, man, and it's true. We've seen a lot of things that aren't clear on, Twitter Spaces, an example, or people just saying things that don't necessarily have the evidence to back it up. And the issue is that as much as it's great that everybody has a voice, sometimes things and rumors could run without the actual again clarity that is behind it. So I think one of those things is like a lot of people are saying like, oh, VV's just a quid 2.0, right? And that these NFTs aren't real and that you'll be closed forever. And what are your thoughts on that? Because I know we chatted a little bit about this.
So I have a couple thoughts, and they're not really like. I think it's okay to be really passionate about a technology and not see that technology check all the boxes and know where it could be, right? And you're really passionate about wanting to see it be at a step ahead, right?
Mm,
And I think when it comes to Vivi, right, the community is kind of in a bubble of being from OpenSea or crypto. They have this really, really intuitive like crypto background, right? And then you have Vivi, which is not really crypto heavy people, right? It's a different dynamic completely because it has all this IP, and the fans of the IP saw, oh, I can merge my passion for digital things with my favorite IPs and collecting. And that's
mm.
completely different than understanding what Ethereum is or Bitcoin and blockchain and things like that, right? So I feel like they were in these two different worlds. And you have the one world who's really crypto heavy, blockchain um, intuitive, coming in and saying, I want you to be like this, right? But then you just have a general population of EV people being like, hey, dude, I like my collectibles. I like reaching new goals. I like getting my favorite mint. I love the fact that now Amazing Fantasy 15 is in the app, right? Like then you have that
Right.
community of people. And now you have kind of like a clash of these two groups, right? And I think the perspectives from both sides matter and they're important. And I think that if we take the time to ask the right questions and talk through the right things with the intention of moving things forward, right? Progressing, not degressing,
Mhm.
then I think we have a lot to learn from each other and we can move forward together. But um, high level, man, Veve is an incredible platform. It gives people easy entry into the space, and once they get into this space, now they can start to learn the different avenues in which other people would like to see them learn, right? And so
Mm.
I think it's a great onboarding opportunity for people into a brand new type of internet phase, Web3 phase.
Right. Well said, man. I think that's, one of the biggest things about Vivi is got that, Apple feel to it. It's very clean. It's very accessible. It has, like you said, the best IP in the world. It's all there sitting in one place. And, somebody said to me recently, like when these, NFTs that are on Immutable aren't necessarily being tracked, that it's just a token representation.
Mm,
And, I think we talked about this as well, that it is super real and that
yeah,
it is on the blockchain. So, I mean, this stuff is being recorded. Every transaction we see, we could see the clarity behind it. We could see, like recently, even like a Miles Morales sold for like 8,300, and we're like, okay, did that actually happen? Yes, it did. Here's the
yep,
actual transaction ID.
yep.
But maybe you can help explain that to people that don't really get that point yet.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because I'm still learning about a lot of this, and I like to do like my 50 hours of research into something that know nothing about, right? And
Right.
when I got into NFTs, was not educated on the blockchain technology on that side of things, right? So my goal was to research that side of things. And starting off, I was really unaware of like where Vivi's collectibles were even being stored because originally they were on GoChain, right? And that was just an independent blockchain, not really anybody
Right.
knew about it, and that's where they were being stored. And then they shifted to Immutable X, which is what they're on now, which is an Ethereum layer 2 blockchain, right? And
Mm.
it's basically a scaling solution for the Ethereum blockchain without gas fees. And you can just produce larger transactions per second on it, right? And so where Vv then moved to is now layer 2 on the Ethereum blockchain, which is Immutable X, and it communicates all the transactions to Ethereum. So the
Right.
reason that we can see everything in a Mutascan and all the transactions that are actually happening in real time on Vv is because it's communicating all that data to the Ethereum blockchain,
Mm.
which Immutable X is its own blockchain, right, to communicate that data. So I think whenever the narrative is like VV NFTs aren't real NFTs, first appearance only in VV, like it's, I think, okay, if you're going to say that, that's a big statement.
Yeah.
You better come to the table with a very detailed explanation of your 50 hours of research that you put in to make that claim, right? Like,
Mm.
don't make a claim like that unless you've done your research, not just listen to somebody tell you that, right? And so I think
Right.
it's important for all of us to not be people who just read headlines or go into a space, hear a sentence, and then bounce out and make our assumption, right? It's like do the work in the downtime, the half hour before you go to bed, or the hour lunch break, like pull up your phone and do the research, right? And I think that's all our responsibility to do that.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. I love the how you explain that, man. And I think that's, what people need, I guess, to think about is that, right now we have like things like, for instance, like on Quid, I had the CEO on, and he was talking about like, what if our servers ever went down? That was like the biggest reason that he wanted to have blockchain verification, is so that like if people's assets went missing, so to speak, they could find them on the blockchain, as an example. And like Vivi has that, right? And I think people's biggest thing, and you saw my tweet, I like tweeted out being like, hey, there's been a lot of scams on OpenSea. And I was like, at least we didn't have any of that on for our Disney assets. And people lost their mind. And I meant it more as like a joke. Like, I know we all want interoperability long term, and I know that like the licensors, there's so many facets and different things to examine before they could just move forward completely. But I think that's, I think it will happen over time. but it was just so interesting, hearing people how crazy and pissed off they were with me when I just made this little joke. Um, and a lot of people are just saying because we can't take it out, like it's just locked into this app. But I think, like I said before, like I think there's other plans. Like, what happens if Disney comes out with their metaverse and now Vivi's interoperable within blue chip, companies as an example, or within 3 or 4? Like maybe it's not going to go the OpenSea route. Like I don't know, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like I think there's a lot of hope, and I guess I just like I'm trying to fish here, Ryan. I'm trying to
Yeah,
see what I
yeah.
can what I can unravel, like I said earlier.
Listen, man, I'll be honest. I'm a peasant when it comes to like the really really in depth long term vision
Yeah.
of VV. I'm a worker bee. I get on my computer and I develop a strategy and try to execute it right. But I will say there's there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Um,
Right.
there is a massive amount of work that goes in daily to make this operation function properly, right?
Mm.
And there is an enormous amount of um, time that it takes whenever you're communicating first to your team. You're asking your team to accomplish something that goes back to the executive team. That executive team now takes that to a licensor. A licensor, you know, okay, this is good, this isn't, goes back to the executive team, goes back to the team that's executing it, goes back. Like you have a lot of different processes that are happening all simultaneously across multiple levels of the business, right? And
Mm.
so when all this is happening, you can start to get a picture of what one process for just a random NFT project where this independent creator owns the IP, can do with it whatever they want. They can talk to this person for a partnership. They can talk to this influencer with a partnership. That process does not translate to the way VV works, right? Because they're working with massive, massive IP and companies that there's already a system and a process in place to make sure all of that stays cohesive across every single place that that piece of content's published, right? And so the when it's like the it's it's like the pros and cons, right? That process can be looked at as a pro and a con, but like long term, it's a massive pro because it has sustainability and lifespan to it, right? One of the
Mm.
biggest reasons NFT projects die so quickly is because they get massive hype, they get a bunch of people to talk about it, and then what happens? Boom, it just takes a dive, right? Vivi has long term sustainability because they're taking the right actions and going through the right processes that aren't necessarily going to please people in the short term, but are absolutely going to do what's best for them long term, right? So short term pain for long term growth, and that ultimately is the business model that is the most successful. And yeah, so
Wow. Bravo, man. I don't know if you saw, but I gave you a little clap there during the middle because this is what people needed to hear. A lot of times they're like, "Oh, what's VV doing?" They're just, sitting by the sidelines, just letting all these things come to be. And I remember Rob Stuff said this to me best. He's like, "Hey, Walt, as an example, was retailed at $300. It's not my fault you paid 48,000 for it. Like that's that, and I'm not, that's not against anybody, but I'm just saying, like, we have to be mindful that like Vivi's not responsible for secondary market action, right? Like how
yeah,
to a certain extent, maybe there was the whole thing with some bots and being in a closed system, but to a certain extent, like people are buying that voluntarily for what they want. So it's like, when they see a dip back from where they were, it's not necessarily representative of what Vivi's communicating to the community, saying like go buy these assets. So there's that piece. And then I think the other thing that you said that was so brilliant was like it takes a long time for stuff to get moving. Like, and just when you might announce something saying, okay, we're finally at this stage, some licensor or some partner comes back and says, actually, wait a second, this happened. So we have to now recheck what's going on, or, think about how we're going to approach this. So I think there's like so many components, which I think you explained so well. Thanks for that.
yeah, man. You're absolutely welcome, and that's why Like I said, I don't know like the fine details, but overarching, a little bit more understanding of the process. You have to, in a lot of ways, because think about it, right? If you're doing a job and then a wrench gets thrown in the plans, you now have to do 2 jobs, right? You have to
Right.
solve the problem that the wrench broke, right? Or the machine that the wrench broke, and you still have to execute the job that needs to be done. So now you just have
Mm,
2 jobs. Now, let's say another project, right, that's being worked on gets another wrench. And if you don't have like that manpower to scale that out, now you're doing 3 jobs, right? And so now people are a little bit thin. This is just practical ways in which business operates. So one of the main priorities for Vivi right now that's going to help everybody long term, and you're already seeing them do it in real time, right? They hired me, they're hiring a lot of new people,
true.
is scaling out their team. And now what's going to happen is you're going to see those problems get solved in a quicker time period because now multiple people don't have to do multiple jobs, right? They're independently, very strategically picking a person for a job, placing them there. And now, whenever that problem arises, there's a person to take care of it. And so, over time, you're going to see things get tighter and tighter and tighter. Um, and obviously, right now is just very much so dig your heels in the dirt and build.
Mm,
Like that's the game right now.
wow. That it's not a fun time for anybody right now. Like you said,
No.
like this is a bear market. This is like, Vivi scaling their team. This is when we're seeing so many NFT projects die, right? While Vivi's still selling out almost every week. You know what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say? So it's like people have to think about relatively like where Vivi is and compared to other NFT projects and even in crypto as a whole. Like, I mean, I was just invested into a bunch of AI tokens about 3 weeks ago, right when the whole hype around chat gpt happened, and a lot of my stuff like 3 to 5x, and I just sold it off like 3 days ago, and now it's all crashing again, right?
Oh my
So
gosh.
people have to know too, like this is, like this is like you said earlier, like Vivi is sustainable, like these assets, this ip, the community, the love for it, and with things like mcp, that's just gonna even enhance that even more, right? So so I
Yeah.
guess on that topic, like what's your thoughts on the MCP? Like, have you seen any kind of back end development on that, or is it still? I guess we'll have an announcement tomorrow, so maybe we'll wait to see what Dan and David say. But
Yeah, I'll wait to comment on any of that for the announcement, um, because I think it's beneficial for them to speak about it because
yeah,
they see closer to the development team. I don't really know what happens within development, right? I can tell you that that is the number one priority for the community right now is to
mm.
deliver that because, um, as you'll actually see soon, not hashtag soon, but literally soon. Um, I had to say that because
Yeah, exactly.
hashtag soon, not hashtag soon, but soon. The We're doubling down, quadrupling, quintupling, whatever you want to call it. We're doing that with the mission and vision of Evie, which is to build collectors, right? For the love of collecting. And
Mhm.
so we are going to do everything we can to build features, processes, interact with the community in ways that stay true to that mission and vision, right? And so very soon you're going to see that kind of come to light in a really cool way. And I'm really, really excited about the ways in which we're going to be able to completely scale out a brand new marketing strategy that's going to do a lot of cool things for the platform, for the community,
Wow.
and just overall relationships.
Wow. Man, I'm really excited to have you on the team. I'm not gonna lie, you represent the company so well, just how eloquent you are, and like I feel like it's really cool, man. I mean, I'm excited, and I feel like I've asked you a lot of tough questions, right off the bat, so I apologize about
No, dude, it's good. Like I'm not afraid of hard questions, man. If you want to, like,
yeah.
I think it's healthy as a person because I got to look at it from your perspective, right? You're not on the internal team side, but you are a stakeholder in the project. You're passionate about the project. You're a collector yourself, and you have a massive audience of people that kind of want to hear from you, not just like a echo chamber, but they want to hear Chad like ask a tough question and get an answer, right? So I have to appreciate what you do too. And so absolutely, dude, if you want to ask me a hard question, I'm not gonna I want to entertain that, right? I want
Yeah.
to embrace that.
No, that's so cool, man. Well, I appreciate that. Well, here's one that I thought was really interesting, and this isn't a tough question, but it's really I think would be cool to hear your perspective on it. So I've been going to a lot of these physical comic book shops recently. I actually got the where is it? The 1 in 200 variant of the Miles Morales #1, the volume 2.
Oh, nice.
The spider, yeah. So like, and I'm just been like, and I've been trying to get a comic book owner, a big time comic book owner, to come on the show. And so, I kind of talk about how great all the physicals are, and I'm trying to warm them up. And then I'm like, hey, would you ever consider coming on and just, talking about digital? And, a lot of them are reluctant. But one thing that one guy said that was really cool was he's like, I'm very confident. He said that in 10 years, they're actually going to stop printing comic books altogether, and then everything will just go digital into like NFTs. And he's like, the only thing that I would say is he's like, I doubt that the digitals will ever retain the same value as the physicals,
Hmm.
because the physicals are getting, more and more scarce. And the fact that they wouldn't be printed, and then for the longevity after that, everything would go digital,
Mhm.
that would just exasperate the importance of having these physical pieces. And then I argued back to him, and I was like, yeah, but I was like, you're not getting much social capital. These things are going to sit in your basement. Maybe you could Zoom call somebody and show it off. I'm like, eventually there'll be a hologram of your AF-15 that you can bring around anywhere in an airplane. You could show somebody on the seat beside you. So I was like, I beg to differ that like long term, we might see something similar. So what do you think about that?
Um, I think that's a really cool conversation. The fact that you got into this conversation with the dude at the comic book store. So I give you a round of applause for that. That's epic.
Thanks, man.
Uh, I would have loved to have been there too to like just hear it, and see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the coolest things about one physical collecting is the nostalgia, right? Like there's something about holding a comic book that has like, a worn cover, it's a key issue, it
Mm,
has a key first appearance, and like you send it off, you get it graded, you get that plastic container back. Like there's something cool about that, right? And I don't want to I think there's always a place for that in the longevity of collecting, right? And I would also say too that digital collecting, and Comics and Crypto wrote about this a while ago on Go Collect. Digital collecting is actually going to build the market for more physical collectors,
right.
because when people collect a digital, they want the physical counterpart, right? So if I had, Amazing Spider-Man #2, first appearance of Vulture that just dropped on Veve, right? I might start shopping on eBay to try and find the physical because I finally just got that comic in the app, right?
Right.
And so it's actually going to start to merge these two worlds and actually make a case for a market expansion in
Mm,
physical and digital, because now you can do both simultaneously, and the one doesn't add to the inventory in your basement or your closet, right?
right.
So there's not really a con to collecting digitally. The other thing I would say is digital collecting is going to take probably 10 years, right? Before there's like mass adoption of people, right? You're talking
Mm,
millions of people coming in and collecting digitals, because just like human nature is human nature, man. I mean, let's use history and paint the picture here, right? When did Jeff Bezos start working on Amazon? Like 1994,
yeah.
right? And it took until 2010 for that to actually start to like become a thing. Oh, I'm looking
Right.
at it on Amazon, right? That's 16 years. So when I look at digital collecting, we're in maybe close to year 3. I mean, for Vivi at least, right?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
say
yeah.
OpenSea blockchain's been around for maybe like 5 or 6 years. It's been here for a little bit. But like really getting educated on it, man, and actually incorporating it into your life and saying, yeah, I love having my augmented reality Spider-Man. I love dropping it at the parks. I love
Mhm.
collecting the sub 100 mints. Like, for people to really start getting that and getting engaged with that, there's going to be massive education over a 5-year period, and then there's going to be dipping my toe in the water and getting acclimated for another 5, right? And then it's full blown like, dude, I freaking love this app. I got all the original common covers. Like, that's when you start to see things scale. We're in year 3, man. There's going to be ebbs and flows, especially when, people say Vive's not transparent enough. Dude, there's nothing more transparent than the CEO of your company coming into a Twitter space and letting you ask him questions about the company that he's building.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think that, um, you know, patience is key.
Mm,
And this isn't a matter of if it's going to catch on, it's a matter of when. And I've said this in a tweet. The reason I believe in it so much is because it makes too much sense for it not
right.
to catch on, right? It's too convenient.
Wow. Man, Ryan, you're coming out with all the gems today, man. I like I'm just, I'm thinking about what you said about the digital and how long it might take before we actually see that massive rise like you talked about. And I agree. And it's really interesting because, if I can make a comparison to the physical world, it's as if you and I were grading, Grail comics back in the 1960s or 70s. Like that's the comparable thing. We've been one of the first few people to hold on to them, wait till CGC becomes a thing, send them in, right? And then now in the physical world, especially when the pandemic hit, all these people that weren't collecting NFTs went into comics, cards, etc., and started grading it. So now you have a massive rush of people doing that, which does two things. It elevates the value of the things that are really scarce and significant tremendously. And two, it makes the things that aren't that significant have massive saturation. And now you're seeing a huge pull off. Like a lot of the stuff that people are spending, like modern comics, 2 grand on a modern comic is now like, $600 for a speculative first appearance.
Hmm.
But there's some characters. Marvel's just comes out with a new character. This could be a potential figure in a movie, and people go crazy, right?
Yep.
And so right now, this is the real opportunity for the long-term growth. And don't get me wrong, I think comics are still amazing and you still get a lot of ROI. But I think that this is really the next revolution, and most people are 99% of people are closing their eyes to it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the people that are here, we're just too spoiled, really, when it comes down to it, right?
Yeah,
We've been desensitized to the importance of what's actually happening on the platform, right?
right.
Because we're in the golden age of first appearances and first editions and the best comics in premium digital format that you own in the blockchain. We
Right.
are getting those in real time. And the counterparts in the real world are upwards of 3.5 million, I think Amazing Fantasy 15's worth.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, your common 1723 Amazing Fantasy number 15 isn't necessarily going to be worth that. But
Yeah.
it makes a strong foundation, it builds a strong foundation for that digital counterpart that's owned in the blockchain, which will only ever be even less than 10,000 people. It makes a very strong case for that asset appreciating in value, right? Because it has
Right.
a real world counterpart that can build on its foundation. And so, I think you need the physical to prop up the digital, but also the digital is going to take kind of its own form and its own life in a
Mm,
brand new kind of Web3 experience, right? And
right.
the amazing thing that I love that you said is, it's similar to us, like getting, these a Marvel Comics number one in 1960 or not or 1939, right? Getting it, keeping it, and then waiting for the CGC to be created. Like it wasn't even around, right?
Yeah.
Waiting then and then sending it like, okay, what is going to be Vivi's CGC, right?
Yeah.
Like we got to think in that term, in that timeline. And that isn't developed in year 3, that's developed in year 15 because
Exactly.
there needs to be proof of concept. There needs to be data to collect to make decisions. Like you have to have these things in order to make a business function properly.
Man, well said, dude. And I think that's right. Like, I think there's gonna be some kind of global digital verification network that basically identifies first appearances on major blockchains,
Yep.
and then how that integrates with other, like, Cardano versus whatever versus Ethereum, like how that integrates. But I think it was just going to be like FA of major blockchains, and I think that will one day, like you said, you'll be sending your asset in, or like going through some kind of approval process,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you get a check mark, and maybe that check mark comes to like your social media feed where you actually says like Chad Larrabee, verified whatever, X asset, right?
Yeah, there's undoubtedly 110% going to be a software company that is developed over the next 5 years that takes a look at all of these blockchains, um, kind of props up the most iconic ones, which is Ethereum is like the number one blockchain,
Right.
and the fact that Veve is on a mutable X, which Ethereum is its layer one parent, right? That's massive for Vivi because
Mm,
they're going to be on one of the most popular blockchains in the entire world that uh, third party companies build data off of, right? So
yeah.
whenever they're looking on blockchains for first appearance data, right, they're going to go straight to Ethereum first, and they're going to pull
Mm,
data from there to make their software populate what we want to see information wise. So
yeah.
that's a massive implication for Vivi to be on a mutable X and for their data and transaction history to be stored there.
Man, that's so accurate. And like, think about the implications of that. It's hard to kind of envision it now because there's not that much interest, but I really do see that transition being inevitable,
Yeah.
especially as like these more things come out, like augmented reality, virtual technology, like lidar technology. Like I keep telling everybody, I'm like, hey, just like I'm like all my friends, I'm like, in 10 years, you know how you're laughing at all my like digital assets. When you walk into my house next time in like 10 years, you can probably press a filter on your glasses or whatever it's going to be, your contact lens, walk around my house and see everything digital, and
Mhm.
I can change the setting on you instantly and be like, okay, that was my Spider-Man, now check out my Batman, now check out my cards, right? And like all these people are going to be like just into it then, starting to collect, because they're
Yes.
going to realize that you, but we're already seeing that 10 years, 12 years prior, right? And it's just a matter of like, it's the same thing, like, comic books, right? A lot of the physical collectors will know, you buy a comic book first appearance for like $150, like a 1/100 variant, and you sit on it for 10 years, and then every now and then that one comic book's worth like 20,000. You're like, wow, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
100%. I mean, I think one of the things that we sometimes forget about too, and I actually think it's warranted sometimes, right? Because there has been in the past a lot of um, over promise, under deliver, right? And
Yeah.
now we're seeing like things turn, and there's less over promising and more delivering, right? And one of the things that we often forget about, because that was the way things were happening for too long, was that Vivi's building its own metaverse. I mean,
Mhm.
we look this over sometimes, and to think that they're going to own a metaverse in which the most popular coveted IP in the
Right.
entire world is inside of, with its verifiable first appearance in the blockchain. Um, that's not something that's going to happen ever again. And so um, when the I mean,
It's
yeah,
so true. It's
like
I think that says it all. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, to think that to the extent Vivi builds that metaverse, right? The
Mhm.
Viviverse, with intention to social platforming, right? Building a social platform. That's what the Viviverse should be, or in my eyes, at least, my opinion. It should be a place where people can go in Web3, in virtual reality, in augmented reality, and be with each other and celebrate what they've collected, talk about it, learn about it. It should be a place of education. It should be a place of building. It should be a place of information. It should be a place of creating relationships. It should be a place of celebrating your favorite IP, right? Like,
Mhm.
to the extent they build that out well, Vv will be the only, not just NFT project, which I don't even consider it an NFT project because that just has a bad connotation at this point.
True. That's a good point.
Um, it's going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity to be in it in its very first iteration. Like that
Wow.
will never happen again.
Right. Wow. And I mean, I can't like once you kind of broke it down there, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, yeah, like these are the biggest, baddest characters and a thing that everybody wants, which is the metaverse, which is like this buzzword that isn't, which most companies just say it as a like a dangling carrot, but Vivi's going to do it. Like it's they showed us demos, like this is happening. And then you like you said, what do you think is gonna make the biggest world draw for people's attention span? Hey, come into this metaverse where we have, you know, friggin' Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, like Woody, Buzz Light, like anything you could ever think of is here.
Or do you want to go to like and collect the purple space monkey angel things?
Right. Right. And you can come in here and, you know, whether you want a $10,000 item or a $10 item, you can still participate and be a part of this ecosystem, right?
Right.
So I think that's a huge draw, man. And that's the thing too. Like people forget a lot of these NFT projects, massive barriers to entry. Like I mean, Porsche that came out with theirs, it was like 0.911 ETH, which in Canadian dollars is like about $2,000, right? And it's like not everybody just has 2 grand to just go drop on a digital project that you know isn't promising. Like a utility looked okay, but it didn't give a huge roadmap for
Mhm.
Porsche. Where I didn't really see it being worthwhile for 7,500 mints initially, but I'm just saying as an example, like so many things like that. Whereas Vivi is just like really appeals to the masses, dude.
Well, you know what's crazy about this too, and this is what we were talking about earlier with like, you know, just like these companies haven't been created yet because there's not enough data. For instance, like
Mhm.
comic books, the CGC was created, right? One
Right.
day, the VVverse will be established, and there will be third-party companies that are created to help make that VVverse better, right? And when I
Mm.
look at it this way, right? There are massive Fortune 500 companies, right? Toyota, Microsoft, Sony, whoever you name it, right? Pay hundreds, if not millions of dollars in their ad budget to high traffic websites, right? So
Mm.
websites that get over a million hits a month or, you know, 20 million hits over a quarter, right? They'll pay that website, the owner of it, millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars to run ads that populate every single day to people that come and visit the website, right?
Right.
Now, picture with me and think about how practical it's going to be if I own the number one minted Amazing Fantasy 15, right? Or let's say Vivi has that in its you know historical vault that's showcased, and then number two is the first public mint, right?
Right.
And I own the number two Amazing Fantasy 15. And Vivi begins to calculate the number of visits to your home, right? So now, like website visits in Web 2, you can use your home visits as a way to start showcasing to companies to advertise at your home in the Viviverse, right? Because if I own the number two Amazing Fantasy 15, the first publicly minted lowest mint,
Yeah.
I got news. I'm going to that person's place and I'm checking that out and I'm looking at more of his collection. And
Right.
going maybe daily, I get 1,000 people visiting my home. Now that's leverage for me to go to crypto.com and put an ad on my home that they're paying me $200 a week or $200 a month for. Right now, you can start to actually see how this begins to monetize long term.
Wow. Wow. I don't even think people ever thought of that. I know I didn't. So like coming from a marketing expert, that's a really cool, you know, detail that like is just probably one aspect of like hundreds of others that can happen now with
Yeah.
Web3, right? Like
And
it's just
I
insane.
mean, I don't know these things, but, like, picture it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Vivi's gonna have purchase you can purchase accessories, right? Imagine once you can purchase billboards that are a block away from your home, you own that billboard, and your goal now is to drive traffic to it, and instead of, you know, them coming to your home, you put your partner statue that's 1901, right? It's 1901. That's Walt Disney's birthday. You put 1901 in front of the billboard. So people come, they see the partner statue 1901, and then they look at the billboard, and that's an advertisement that you're making revenue off of. So, like,
Right.
there's going to be a lot of different ways, and it's going to be years, right? Maybe decades before we see this really come to fruition. But
Yeah.
these are all very practical things that we could wrap our heads around that make sense, almost too much sense not to happen.
Right. Wow. I think that I don't know, man. I'm mind blown from that. I feel like a lot of other people are too. But I guess in the more tangible world now, it's nice to see you friggin' Vivi burning some stuff. I know they just burned like a bunch of daredevils, which like
I
took the supply
know. I
down.
literally was on the market looking at Daredevils, man.
Yeah, I'm lucky I have a few sub 100s of Daredevil, but I was like,
Look at it this way, dude.
yeah.
Daredevil one or I'm not showing this or nothing. I don't even own it. But Daredevil 1964 mint. What I saw it on the marketplace for 1.9K, right?
Mhm.
In a bull run, that thing would sell astronomically higher than that. Not to mention, it could be a great piece for a vault just to hold on to long term to do exactly what I was talking about with the driving traffic to your home, right?
Right. Right. And see, this is where it's really interesting what you're saying here, that, a lot like for me, I've always been this type of collector. I look for one, at least one very significant piece that, like you said, is going to build social capital. A lot of people, what they do is they just go and they buy things at mass, like commons at mass, wait for a pump, sell it off, and they make it's like more practical. Like you make more money that way. But my thing is like that long-term vision,
Yeah.
right? Like what are those things that are going to maybe build me more value or my brand more value? And this is where I wanted to get into renting, because I was like, what like does that even look like in the VV verse? Like if I'm renting you an asset, like why would I want to rent? Like if I'm somebody that's just, walking around and maybe I want to be a secret rare Spider-Man, I can go to like Dr. Prof and be like, hey man, I want to rent your secret rare Spider-Man for the day. It's $20. And maybe that $20, like you said previously, is for people to come to your house to see it, which then does the whole high traffic volume thing. Maybe there's other use cases, but like that's obviously something Vivi has in the plans, renting.
Yeah.
And like what do you think that's going to look like?
So I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, I figured, me neither. Yeah.
um, like I said, I don't know about like I'm getting more into like my speculative phases of
Okay,
thinking about these things and really like imagining what can be possible, but still
yeah.
within the realm of reality, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so I try to think about it from a standpoint of one, the business or the brand, and two, the consumer, the person that is having the experience, right? Why do NFL teams, why do sports teams in general make so much money? Because of the ability to get advertisements on their stuff, right?
Mm,
In a
mm.
stadium, how many advertisements are there, right?
Too many to count.
Too many to count.
Yeah.
And we don't understand it. We don't know why, but they are absolutely effective and they absolutely drive people to use those different services, right? So my thing with the Viviverse is from a business standpoint, how do you turn it into one, an amazing and incredible experience for the user, right? But simultaneously make it a fruitful place where it could build community among business, right?
Right.
So to the extent you can bring those two things together, whether that's allowing renting opportunities, whether that's allowing, you know, um, sharing collectibles or adding collectibles to somebody's home or whatever it looks like. I don't know yet. But to the extent that that happens, that's when we see mass adoption of the Viviverse. You have to have to be able to build an ecosystem for both things to function properly within it.
Mm. Really, really cool, man. Yeah, and I've thought about, like, I think I did a video on it way back. I was like, you could rent, for instance, to get, like, let's just say a Todd, and then that Todd gives you access to join a club for the day that, like, some of the OGs put together in the VV verse. Or maybe you need a secret rare Spider-Man or a common Spider-Man in order to get access to a drop, or maybe to go, there's a geolocation part in the VV verse where you need to like have Star Wars NFT to walk in. Like there's those kind of things that I think about for renting, but I'm like, what is actually, like you said, like what is going to come first? And like there's
Yeah.
still so many like what ifs.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
I don't even I don't know, man. I mean, we gotta wait and see, I guess, because,
yeah,
like I said, I mean, there's so many plans, and so many things that are going to be coming, and it's it's hard. It's almost like trying to drink from a fire hose because you're like, all right, we got renting in the Viviverse, we got billboards in the Viviverse, we got partner statute 1901 driving traffic that's almost like a website so you can start to promote your brand in the
Yeah.
Viviverse. We have, the museum of VV with all the number one mints. You got all these ideas, right?
Right.
And it's like, dude, I have no idea.
I know, I know, and, like, where's the manpower? Like, it's not as if we got 10,000 people working behind the scenes going like, "Okay, let's execute all
Yeah.
of these ideas." It's like,
But
let's
here's the thing, right?
yeah,
Here's the thing. One day, just like if I were to try to get somebody to build me a website in 2000, right? That
yeah,
thing would have cost upwards of maybe 50 to 100K. Now I can get somebody to build me a website for 2 grand in 5 days, right?
yeah,
So the reason for that though is because there were software companies that came along and they built productive software at an affordable cost that solved the problem. So, as time goes on, what's going to happen as the metaverse becomes more real and people can actually go in it, experience it, take notes on it, and go back to their team and say, okay, we need to build this to make this better. As time goes on, you're going to see more and more of those companies evolve. And now
mhm,
it's going to allow these things that we're talking about right now scale out and come into this ecosystem quicker,
right.
faster, and better. So, we're in the Atari version of this conversation right now, right? When we revisit this video, sometimes I'll revisit my old videos and be like, "Wow, man, I was an idiot when I was what was I talking about, dude?"
Yeah.
Like sometimes to get a kick out of myself, I go on my TikTok and I just watch my old videos. I'm like, dude, man, I suck.
I
but but like
everybody has that, I feel like,
but
you
like,
know?
we're gonna look back at what we're talking about now
Yeah,
in, even 6 months, dude. This whole thing changes so fast and be like, dude, what were we talking about? You
yeah,
know?
yeah. I know. It's sad that, that happens. I think I told you about I work at a hospital in the day, so,
Mm,
we do a lot of similar stuff, like, I do a lot of, like, social marketing campaigns and stuff, and, one of the things is, like, we looked at our language, like, for, like, equity, diversity, inclusion, and, like, marginalized populations and everything, like, just 10 years ago, a lot of resources and things that were developed were so obsolete, they're like dinosaurs now
mm.
compared to the new language and the standard for, people with visual disabilities, et cetera, need, and it's just, like, it's such a dinosaur when you look only 10 years ago, but 10 years ago, when I was,
Wow.
you're like, "Oh, this is the next best thing," right? So I'm like, "What am I doing today that in 10 years from today, I'm gonna be like, 'Holy shit, like, what the heck was I thinking?'" Like, So I agree with you.
Absolutely, man. I
Yeah.
mean, think about like 4 megapixel pictures on your iPhone 4, dude. And now
Yeah,
look at what we have: 4K, 24 frames per second, filming cinema style videos on
I
our
know,
phone, dude.
I
Like,
know.
I
And
don't know.
even, man, even, like, the one thing that I'm actually terrified of right now is ChatGPT and, like, all these
Oh,
AI programs. I've been doing a lot of research, and I could literally just like, I think I told you, but I do, like, a lot of creation stuff at work, and I'm just using ChatGPT for so many things now, and, I can write a poem to my wife, like, on my way back from work, and she's gonna be like, "Oh my god, you're the best husband ever." I'm like, I'm doing all these things that I'm like, this is just getting absurd about how it's, like, eliminating the need to actually understand, like, language. Now you just have to be able to ask the right questions, you know?
well, and I think there it's the love-hate relationship, dude, because one, it helps your productivity so much better. I can't tell you when I use an AI prompt
Mm,
for a written piece of content and it shoots out an idea, and then I can restructure that sentence to be
right.
the way I want it, how much quicker I can get that piece of content done than if I weren't to do that. So AI is really productive in one sense, but like, dude, it's really, really going to be detrimental in another to our brains, right? It's
Mm,
like if you only use a calculator to do math, you'll never be able to solve the equation 7 times 7, or you'll never be
right.
able to add 7 plus 8. Like, it's you have to still do things and work your brain. You
Yeah.
have to be challenging your brain to work and do things. And to the extent you don't do that, that's when you start to like break down both cognitively, physically, you name it. And so there's a pro and a con to AI. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. But 100% it could really help be productive in workflows if you use it properly. Yeah.
Right. That's well said. I think they're just gonna have like almost like more of a like if this does become like, completely integrated into society, which I feel like it will be within the next like 6, 7 months, they're just the expectation will probably just be higher for like content developers and like job descriptions will be like write 35 scripts a day when before it would be like write a script a week. you know?
Oh my god, dude! It's
Yeah.
you're spot on with what you're saying because it's very true. Like I think one of the least appreciated jobs on planet Earth is being a social media manager because there is such a high level of expectation because of what the person sees as
Mm,
opposed to what's actually being both monetarily put into it and the skill level of the person doing it, right?
right.
Like we see this $200,000 produced series of reels, right? And a manager thinks, okay, I'm going to take this to my social media manager. We got to produce this content, and they're getting paid, X number of dollars a month, or their salaries, a fraction, a tenth of that, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
it's a very challenging dynamic when it comes to content creation because expectations are just all over the place and
Yeah.
they're very difficult to manage. So what I've come to learn is that up front you manage expectation first. That's your first job. And then you build content, not the other
Mm,
way around.
love that. That's well listen, man, you gave us some friggin' terrific advice today, some great insight. Like I said, you represent Vivi so well.
I
And
hope so.
I
I hope I
yeah.
don't get scolded.
No, man, and I feel like you gave us a lot of really good insight. Like I feel like really confident about the project still, and I always have been. I would really like to meet the team. I definitely would love to have, some a little more kind of I don't know, just a little more opportunity to connect with you guys. I know you and I are well connected, but it's just kind of nice to see them. So I think I'm excited for the video that's gonna come out tomorrow too, right? That'll be like what time? Do you know what time that's dropping? Midday-ish or
I'm not sure what the time frame is. I mean,
yeah.
the timestamps are very different across the board. You have New
True.
Zealand, you have
That's a
LA,
good
you have
point.
East Coast, like you have all these different timestamps.
Yes.
So it's hard to like label when those things are gonna
1 PM. It's 1 PM somewhere tomorrow.
it's 1
Yeah.
p. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? Let's get the
Yeah, yeah.
margaritas and tacos ready, dude.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, listen, man, super helpful conversation. You're obviously a really smart guy, and yeah, I really appreciate you, taking the time to come on. That really nice of you to do that.
Dude, yeah, thanks for having me, man. And like you said, I would love to like connect more and try to make it more of a priority to get on here and one talk about practical things that are in the pipeline and try to
Right.
paint the picture and the vision, but also forecast what the future can hold and paint perspective for that. Because, dude, I'm not the smart like I said to you earlier, like the list of things that I do really well is like here the
Yeah.
list of things that I suck at is like, keep going, right? And so, but if I have a perspective to something that could like open somebody's mind to think a different way or double down on what they were thinking, like that's going to be productive for everybody. And so, the more things we do like this within the community,
Yeah.
you're just going to build a great community. And that's really what it's all about, man. Is just getting on here and talking shop and being organic like we are right now.
Totally agree, man. That's what it's all about. And I could see, you could see the passion, resonating through both of us here, folks. So yeah. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Make sure you go follow Ryan. His Twitter and everything's in the description below. And yeah, man, really proud of you for taking this role. And now I've got some intel. I've got a little bit of intel in the community, so I could see what's happening on Veve. No, I'm just kidding.